Hello, my friends. This is Brian Q. Davis broadcasting from the Sales Warrior Podcast, a conversation about dominating your marketplace without sacrificing your body, your marriage, your children, or your soul. And today's topic is this: whose side are you on? Sit back and relax, and let's get started. So, a lot has happened since the last podcast, as an understatement. We've seen horrific things in the Middle East with Hamas and Israel going to war, and continued bloodshed and chaos and fear. And now we can look at this and see a similar pattern to one we have seen. Do you all remember 2020? We were going along, things were pretty good, and then came the pre-frame. The pre-frame of you will pick a side in the coming year. What do we have this year? Well, about this time, a year from now, we will find ourselves just weeks away from the presidential election. But make no mistake, the forces that be are already trying to pre-frame that you will pick a side. I mean, we don't have to go back far to get the lesson that was given to us during COVID, which is you will pick a side and you will make sure that it is known what side you're on this thing. And if you're on the same side as me, I love you. And if you're on the opposite side of me, as I hate you. And on the other side, they're saying, hey, you're on that side, so I hate you, but I only love the people over here. It's the world, and it's the religion of picking sides. We're already being pre-framed, and I'm just doing this. I'm doing this podcast as just a warning, a trumpet, blowing the trumpet on this, that you can watch, and after you've heard this podcast, hopefully you'll be able to see this in culture, in reality, in news, and all of these things, that everything that you consume, everything that's being sent to you, everything is all being set up to try to get you to pick a side. And you've certainly seen this exposed in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and people have deep convictions about maybe what side they're on, and then there's people that have deep pride about being on one side or the other. Division. Wherever there is division, it's the work of the enemy. The enemy of God hates unity. He is a master and a progenitor of division. That is his game. He wants to divide. In order to divide, I've got to separate. And I've got to separate, I've got to categorize, and I've got to put people in different categories about what side they're on. And as I was considering this idea, I was taken back to an episode in the Bible. An episode in Joshua chapter 5, where if you know the story of Joshua, Joshua was the right-hand man of Moses and took over as commander of the tribe of Israel as they passed from the desert into the promised land. And as they passed into and through the River Jordan and into the promised land, the first thing they were confronted with was a walled city known as Jericho. A fortified city that, needless to say, looked imposing to an untrained, unexperienced army. And there was fear, but they're being told to go take this city. And there's an episode where Joshua encounters somebody unique. And I'll just read this to you. It's from Joshua chapter 5, 13 through 15. Now, when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied. "But as the commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" And the commander of the Lord's army replied, "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy." And Joshua did so. So, as I read this and considered it, I realized that much like we might be asking today, we might be looking around and asking ourselves or asking people around us, are you for us or against us? Are you for us or for our enemies? That was Joshua's request of this mysterious warrior that he sees standing there with a drawn sword. I'm sure Joshua hoped that this imposing, probably glorious warrior with a drawn sword was ready to join his team in the battle they were soon to face. But the response was convicting. Are you for us or for our enemies? Neither. But as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. You see, what this exposes is that oftentimes we will try to get God on our side. We'll try to get God to do the thing that I'm asking him to do. We'll think that we can get God on our side because we are on the side of the righteous. But the truth is, none of us are. In fact, we don't ever get God on our side. We only get on God's side. You see, there was no Joshua's side and enemy side in this battle. There was only God's side and everybody else. And so I had to ask this question of myself, is like, where right now in my life am I trying to get God to be on my side when I should just be, as Joshua is instructed here, to be humble, take off your shoes, this place is holy. And Joshua, to his credit, is obedient and does so. But where right now do I need to humble myself and just be obedient to God and get on God's side rather than trying to get him on mine? You see, if you look at the world right now, and if you look at the world that's going to come into 2024, when everyone is going to try to get you to pick a side, and you're going to want to pick a side, the encouragement I would have for you to say is, the question you need to ask is, am I on God's side or not? That's the only side you need to be concerned with. Because God's perspective of a thing is the only thing we should consider. We should not consider the perspectives of men. We've got to ask ourselves, when we look at this situation, when we look at this division that's happening, or we look at this conflict, do we see Israeli and Hamas, or do we just see lost, and do we see those that are suffering? God is on God's side. That's it. And so my call to you is that as you head into the back end of 2023 and into 2024, be aware of what side you may be called to take. Be aware of who you are being called to stand with. Because our job is not to pick sides. Our job is only to get on the side of God. Are you for us or for our enemies? Neither, he said. But as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. And then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, what message does my Lord have for his servant? That's our response. That's the way to wage war. If you want to wage war, if you want to do something, wage war with your own pride. Wage war with your own humility. Because humility precedes obedience. And that's exactly what Joshua displayed. What message does my Lord, he's acknowledging who he is, have for his servant? I'm your servant. And the commander gave him he gives him a command. Take off your shoes, for this place is holy, where you are standing. And Joshua obeys. He humbles himself and obeys. If you want to find yourself on the side of God, ask yourself, what does his word say right now? And just even asking that question is a humbling statement. because most of us don't even want to find that out. Most of us don't even want to look. But let me ask what his word says I should do. And then once I know what I should do it, just like Joshua did. So my encouragement again, as you go into 2024, be aware of what side you're on. Be aware of those who are trying to get you to pick one side or another. And those that are blinded to this. Well, now that you've heard this, part of your job is to go out and make sure that you are able to encourage them and say, hey, maybe there's a bigger game here at work than just picking sides. Maybe there's a bigger frame of capacity and love that we can have for those that are lost and suffering, that goes beyond what national flag they stand next to, what color political party they belong to, or any other division that mankind wants to create between people. Because in God's army, that's the only place we can all be unified. And so we're either really on the side of unity or we're on the side of division. That's what I got for you today, my friends. This is Brian Q. Davis signing off from the Sales Warrior Podcast, a conversation about dominating your marketplace without sacrificing your body, your marriage, your children, or your soul. If you want to go deeper into the topics of this podcast, go to thesaleswar.com and you can connect there. We've got training, we've got the book, and there will be an event that is coming in the near future. Please sign up if you want details about that event. It's going to be powerful, and it's going to be for all of you who have been so faithful in listening and following the podcast for so many years. Please connect, and if you have my information, feel free to reach out directly. Until next time, more to come.